Hi, I have no idea what sort of video this is. Maybe this is a vlogmas thing or something. But it's my day off. It's the Thursday, what day is it? Let's work it out. It's the Thursday before Christmas. I can't even work it out. You know, it's the trucks, as they say. And the thing is, when you work in a bookshop and you're surrounded by it all the time, and it's kid in the sweet shop time all the time, it grows even more intense at Christmas, because you find that because everybody's buying loads of stuff, you get the urge as well, and the urge is always there. So I do usually buy a few things for myself, just sort of the sheer orgiastic capitalist frenzy, the old sort of pagan substitute thing, and it comes through. So I got a bag of books here from Santa. There he is, and they're not actually in there because, of course, you know, this. You'll see why, because some of them could easily get damaged in the bag. But that's the sort of bag they'd be in if I was doing this properly, which I'm not. So I'm not really bothered. So. So I guess this is just to look at a few things. I guess it's a sort of, it's not a collected diary, because it's a bit broader this time. It's not just SF. In fact, there may not be any SF in this. So, oh, shock, horror, probe. But I've been out this morning doing last minute Christmas shopping, and I got a card from my friend Trevor. This is a vintage postcard of Capri, Italy. And yeah, and he sort of sent this to me, which is great. And he and I are going on a trip together in January with one of our other friends, and yeah, so you might see him then, because he's a good chap. But I'd rather that than a Christmas card, because that's got a special meaning to me. And I've been to Frome this morning. If you're not familiar with Frome, there is a video of me and Graham wandering around Frome, which I'll pop a link to in the end of this video. And also, I'm going to do a new video there next year, like a walkabout. It's a nice little town, well worth a visit. And I tend to go in a second-hand bookshop there, and I've never bought anything there. But the video would have bought a couple of things there. But in their foyer, they had this old books guide to second-hand and antiquarian booksellers in Cornwall, Devon, even in Somerset, Dorset and Wiltshire. So I'll have a scour of this and see if there's anywhere I haven't been, and there's a handy map. And me and Jules are talking about more road trips, so maybe that'll give us some ideas and inspiration for places we haven't been. So what else? So I'm sort of waiting for the postman. He's actually been. I'm just waiting for one more thing to come before Christmas. It doesn't matter if it doesn't, and that's a paperback, and you'll probably see that another time. But I've got this little parcel here. Well, seriously, if I had filmed the unwrapping of this CD, you know, you'd have died of old age, or certainly of boredom. It was completely wrapped in tons of brown tape, cling film, and a plastic bag. Obviously, the guy who sold it had run out of sort of jiffies or whatever. It's exhausting, it really was. But, you know, it's come through in good nick, and it's great. So just to talk through that, this is a different kind of tension, Buzzcock's third album. And this is the European Special Edition, and it's a promo. Look at that, promo copy not for sale, still sealed. Yeah, hey. Now I do have this. I bought the vinyl reissue about 3 years ago, which has got this lovely handsome sleeve, and it's on yellow vinyl, very nice. I've never played it, and I've never heard this record, because I jumped off round about the time, when was it, when their single Promises came out, and that was kind of the last straw for me, really. It all got a bit too poppy, and I was getting into more serious things. But I do love Buzzcocks, and I'm a big fan of Howard Devoto magazine, and because Pete Shelley died a few years ago, there's only Diggle left now. And funnily enough, he's got real attitude, Diggle, but I caught a rerun of a bit of them doing Promises on Top of the Pops 2 the other night from 1978. And they were cool, you know, that sort of straight ahead thrashy thing. Steve Garvey had a lovely Red Precision bass, a Fender, and you know, they were really great, you know. And it's funny, you look back and some of this music was even better than you realise. So, and at the moment, it's interesting. I haven't been to a gig for years, but the Stranglers are playing at Caldecott Castle, which is just over the bridge in Wales. Very nice sort of place for an outdoor gig next year, 60 quid. And Buzzcocks are support, but of course there's only one original member of the Stranglers left, my old chum JJ Burnell, who I love, and Steve Diggle's left. I wish those two would do something together. That'd be brilliant, because they've both got bags of two, do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's a little bit of punk rock there. So that sort of straight ahead energy thing. So I'm going to enjoy that at some point. Very pleased with that. I got this on eBay and knocked the guy down by 10 quid, and he went for my offer. Excellent. But you came here for books, so we'll see what we can do with books. I suppose this is what Scott Bradfield calls a hodgepodge, and I'm just going to come up with these things as they come out. And something that we've done recently where I work is we've brought back a classics section, and by classics we don't mean Greek and Roman works of a certain vintage. We mean the sort of usage that the everyday man in the street usage. But by that they mean 18th and 19th century novels, really, because publishers put classic on everything these days, and it's kind of destroyed it. But we've kind of put it all back together, and it's really nice. And we've been getting in things we haven't had for ages. Obviously, lots of the obvious things that we always sell, but getting some more obscure things, which is nice. And I've been waiting and watching how the guys are doing to develop it, and I keep sort of making comments about what we should have. And I keep saying, oh, you know, maybe we should have Letters from My Windmill by Alphonse Daudet. And look at that, and there it is with a Van Gogh cover. And I've never read this. I've always loved that title, Letters from My Windmill. And it used to have a more rustic agrarian picture of a mill on the cover when I was a lad, and I never bought it. And Daudet was interesting. He was a really famous novelist. He was sort of active between about 1850 and the end of that century. And he was really, really popular, quite sentimental in a way. That's the accusation. And this is a collection of short stories set in his native Provence. And he used to alternate between Provence and Paris. And I haven't read a 19th century French classic for ages, certainly not one I haven't read before. I'm going to reread things. But so I thought it was time to sort of delve back into that. And when I was in Paris this year, you can see the video on the channel, you know, of course, the Parisians, they name all their streets after cultural figures. You know, it's not like we do in the UK. In the UK, it'd be footballers or something, but maybe they are cultural figures. And I came across an Alphonse Daudet street, and, you know, and I was only in the taxi going to the hotel from the airport, from Orly, and I thought, wow, you know, maybe I should read that. It's an indicator I should pick it up. So I got that there. So I'm going to read that. And over the Christmas period, I do get some time off. I'm going to do a lot of reading. And I'm not going to read any SF. I might finish a couple of things off, but I'm not going to read any SF. I'm going to read non-SF. So on that front, a nice little collectible series which popped up earlier this year, and they haven't had great coverage in bookshops, it has to be said, and they're from Penguin, because Penguin and Random House are now the same publisher. Is these vintage quarter cloth classics. You've got quarter binding around there, which is cloth, and you get laminated boards illustration there. And as you can see, this is Calvino, If on a Winter's Night a Traveller. So this is a kind of fantastic Bohemian thing, and very, very nice. I think you'll agree, in that light teal and pink. And I decided to pick this up because I do like Calvino, and I don't have this one, so really, really nice. And these are out there, and there's a series of these. I'll flash them all up on the screen. They do The Woman in White by Susan Hill, who I did an event with once. It was really nice, great event that was. She was fantastic. And they do Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. They do Toni Morrison's Beloved, but you know, we can't all be perfect. I really cannot bear Toni Morrison. I find it completely unreadable. Her style is dreadful. I don't know why is she so famous. I can't get over it. There's other things in there as well. They do Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie. I'm thinking of getting that, actually. So I haven't read that for a long time. Of course, that's an SF novel, and they're nice, but they haven't had a lot of sort of attention. If you look them up, you can search them by going vintage quarter cloth classics or vintage cloth bound classics, and it's, I say, part of Penguin, and Penguin are very big on their cloth bound classics, but of course they're only quarter cloth, not full cloth. But you know, they are really nice, and they're about $16.99 a pop, which is fairly decent for hardcovers. And something I got on that front, which I haven't read for years, and I'm rereading it at the moment, and these do have ribbon markers, by the way, this one there, is Trainspotting by Irving Welsh, which I'm rereading. I'm a quarter of the way through, and I'm really enjoying it. I haven't read it since the 90s, and I read it probably a year or two after it came out. It took a while to become a cult book, and I'm going to talk about this in a different context soon, in the new year. And yeah, I'm really enjoying that. It's great, actually. It's a better novel than I remember. I was very scathing of it when I first read it, but then again, I've used people like Burroughs and Trocky, but it's actually very good, and there's a lot of facets to it which are not in the film, which I watched recently. I was in the mood to watch it, so I did. So what else is there? Right, now here's a list of shame thing, except it's not really a list of shame, because I don't really sort of do that thing, you know, I don't get bothered by not having read things, but somebody who I've flirted with reading for years, and he's really, really popular, and this will shock some of you, is Haruki Murakami, who of course is Japan's best-selling novelist, has been for about 40 years, you know, and he's huge, and he broke through in the UK in the early 90s. And I think what put me off him, even though he's in all the reference books of fabulous, occasional SF and fantasy, is the thing that somebody recommended one of his books to me back in the early 90s. I think it was The Wild Sheep Chase. And said, oh, you know, you'd really like that, Steve. It's your sort of thing's really quirky. And this was somebody who I didn't really have a lot of time for and didn't get on with. It was somebody that I worked with in book selling. But it did rather put me off. I thought, you know, nothing, you don't really know my taste is. We don't read similar things. But anyway, Murakami. This is Kafka on the Shore. And these are a little series of vintage classics again, which I think Jules Bert's been collecting them. And they're very nice, and they're laminated boards, and they've got these quarter wraps which come off. So I'm just going to pop that off. So you've got to be very careful with those, you don't rip them. And they've got these nice decorated boards. Isn't that very pretty? And there you go. And they have, there's a blurb on the end paper there, which is lovely. And yeah, really, really nice. And of course, he's written loads and loads and loads. And the average print run for a Murakami novel in Japan, the first printing will be 1 million copies. So it just goes to show that's on the subscription pre-orders from the bookshops and internet sellers and stuff, which is just incredible. And he's really popular in the UK and worldwide, really. And I've never read him. So with bestsellers, I always feel the world looking over my shoulder, and because I sell bestsellers and because I've seen so many great books come and go and get ignored by the general public, I'm always very suspicious of them, but sometimes they are really good. So I'm going to have a read of that soon, and I'll let you know what I think, and I'll break my Murakami duck. I decided to go for that one because it's in all the reference books. People like Paul DeFilippo like it, and it's chunky and it's got a great cover. I was tempted by some of the smaller ones, but I thought I'd really dive in on that because I'm trying to sort of patch myself back into mainstream a bit, because I've read so much vintage SF over the last year. I am feeling a bit adrift and I want to sort of widen things out a bit, but don't worry, the SF will always be there. So that's a little bit of what I've been buying. Also on the musical front, recently I was rather disconcerted by the passing of Geordie from Killing Joke. And you know, I'm not a massive Killing Joke fan. I like the early stuff a lot. I like the nighttime period a lot. I was never keen on the later, more sort of like industrial metal stuff. I prefer the early stuff. And but yeah, he was an amazing guitarist, and I think at 64, it's only 4 years older than me. He's such a cool looking guy, you know, and utterly tragic. So I thought, you know, let's look at what I've got by Killing Joke. And I was alarmed to discover that some of the sort of early records after the first two are all deleted on CD. It's incredible, they're all deleted. Some you get on vinyl, and I've got some on vinyl and stuff, and a while ago I bought a little box set of the early singles on CD, which was great. And I decided to get this, Laugh, I Nearly Bought One, which is like a greatest hits of the early singles up to about 85. And this is deleted, and I got this on eBay, luckily still sealed, so I'm pleased to get that with the iconic cover. So I'll be listening to that. So R.I.P. Geordie, what a shame. Amazing. We had amazing guitarists in Britain in the late 70s, early 80s in the new wave and post-punk and punk thing. Just brilliant, brilliant, innovative, interesting people. And when I was in Frome, there's a great record shop there called Raves on the Grave, and there's a video of me in there. I'll stick that at the end as well if you haven't seen that. It was quite good fun. And I'll do another one there one day. But I've been waiting in the post for the new album from Spirits Burning and Michael Moorcock. Now, if you're not familiar with this project, this is the first one. This is called The Hollowlands. And basically it's a 2 or 3 CD look at the Dances at the End of Time trilogy by Moorcock. And this has got MM on it. And lots of people are involved with Hawkwind and the Blue Oyster Cult we wrote songs for. And I haven't actually played them yet. And Steve Beeman, my mate, who I did an interview with him as well. I'll put another link in. He's on it. And I walked into this coffee shop at the top of this really trendy little street in Frome to have a cappuccino with a video video. And as I walk through the door, there's somebody looks up and we catch each other's eyes. And it's Richard from Hawkwind, Richard Chadwick, the drummer, who I can't say I know really. We used to see each other around Bath. He used to go to the same comic shop as me, and we'd nod at each other. And you know, we both remember each other back in the 80s, long hair and stuff, the two of us. And I sat down and I said, oh, I'll say hello. I said hello to him, and he said, oh, you know, a little chat. and talked about the band still going. Hawkwind are playing in Bath next year. So yeah, so it's really, really nice to see, and it made me think of this. And this is the other Spirits Burning and Michael Moorcock album. This is one which has literally just come out, and as you see, it's got the Roger Dean cover for The End of All Songs. Marvellous bit of artwork. And yeah, and it's got the Roger Dean artwork for Return of the Fire Clown on the back as well. The Adventures of Miss Mavis Ming is the alternative title, and I've got both of those books. So yes, I'm not actually got into playing these yet, and there is a limited edition red vinyl one coming from the States, and that hasn't quite popped out yet. There's only 300 copies, got to pre-order that, but absolutely beautiful. So a little crossover there between the SF fantasy and rock and roll. And I'll be doing more Moorcock in the new year because I've done very little, and I'm supposed to be a bit of an expert, at least I used to be. And I want to talk particularly about some of the stuff which isn't discussed so much, probably the Hawkmoon and Jerry Cornelius stuff, because those are most of my favourite things. So yeah, so watch out for these. And I know Salty Walt, who watches the channel, hi Walt, great guy, has been into these as well. And I do like Blue Oyster Cult too, so that's going to be interesting. So that's a little look at some of the stuff I've been buying for myself for Christmas, which is nice. And I have bought things for the video as well, but we won't go into that because that's sort of top secret, as it were. And this week, you know, you'll see 2 or 3 of these shorter videos which are about specific things, and then I don't think I'm going to get a big clickbaity thematic thing going on until next year. January there'll be about 4 of those. There'll be about 4 videos. I'm cutting back because it's going to be quiet. I need to have some downtime. I'm going away for a week or so. I got a couple of weeks off, and also I want to start a writing project. There's a short story and novella I need to write for a Canadian anthology, and I really need to get onto that because I haven't written anything since I started the channel, which is really bad. This is Outlaw Bookseller signing out for now. Hope you're having a nice Christmas. See you soon.
Thank you.